So grunge kind of took that 180 approach to what hair metal was, right? This is who they are, and they took it and just went the exact opposite way with it. And then from there, new metal was able to pick up right where grunge left off, right, and kind of bring it back and start that transition to bring it back towards more of a true metal sound and more of a true metal scene. And then that's where, and that was in, grunge was in the 90s. New metal really picked up in the 2000s or late 90s through the mid 2000s, and then metalcore really picked up right like that 2005 time frame.
Yes,
that was a great time to be alive.
Great time for metal.
So much was going on, and I feel like a lot of that, you look at the metalcore bands that were big during that era, and you had the As I Lay Dying's, right, August Burns Red, Bring Me the Horizon, Bullet for My Valentine, all those bands, right? And I think if you graduated somewhere between 2005 and like 2012, right, that was your jam, right? That's what you listened to. Those are the staples. And that is where the mainstream caught back up with more true metal. And I know that that's going to upset a lot of metalheads, right? Because a lot of them don't look at anything that has core in the name, right? Or a big hardcore influence and say that that is actually metal, right? They would say that it's not metal, that it derives too much from the punk scene. And so it's not a true metal genre, right? And for sure, it's not heavy metal.
Right.
But at the same time, as somebody who's a fan of, new metal and of metalcore, I look at the punk scene and I just can't get into like the true punk sound of things.
Same.
And so I would say that it's not, that it is its own thing, right? It's not just a punk hardcore scene. It's definitely more of that true metal sound than I think it gets credit for. It has a unique sound to it too, right? You have like thrash metal, which came straight from that heavy metal, but with a little bit of punk roots. And then you have metalcore, which is sort of a perfect blend between the two, I feel. Which, hence the name metalcore, right?
You do have a lot of arrows pointing on your
I
paper.
do. There's a lot going on this piece of paper, and we're gonna try to get through this together through the magic of post-production editing, and my wife keeping me sane. All right, what metalcore really brought to the scene was the breakdowns, right? Open up the mosh pit, let the drum solo go or whatever it is, right?
Yes.
And just let loose. And I think that's what drew me in, right? The concerts that I remember one of the concerts that we went to. Who was it? It was
I don't know which one you're talking about.
It was a War of Ages, Bless the Fall, Demon Hunter, and As I Lay Dying, all packed into the Sunshine Theater in Albuquerque, right? So there were
holds like 83 people,
right,
and there were like 200.
It was
there.
nuts, but the show that was put on was so
stupendous.
Good.
It was so
right?
good.
There were people, who was it? The lead singer from Bless the Fall, right? Did a front flip from the house speakers, what was that, like 20 feet up into the crowd? I just never seen anything like that before.
No.
The entire bottom floor when As I Lay Dying went on was a complete mosh pit, right? There was no pit. It was just the bottom floor. And if you were down there, you were part of the pit.
Yeah.
And I remember that was actually, was that the first concert that we went to together?
I think so. Yeah.
It might have been. But we were down on the floor and it got kind of crazy. And I remember putting my arms up, right? Trying to, block people from pushing into you and stuff. And I looked down and you're throwing elbows, into the back of people as they come by. And I was like, oh, okay, this is fine. I found the one. But
that's the same show. Cause I am claustrophobic. And so like, even though I can hold my own, I'm claustrophobic. And so we left the mosh pit soon after that.
Oh yeah.
We went upstairs and we noticed like security, the show has not started. Like nothing, no music is playing, nothing's happening. And security on like one side of the venue is like freaking out, and you start like scanning the crowd to be like, what is going on? And there was this little kid, like he was maybe like 14 or 15, because it was an all ages show.
Yeah.
He was teeny tiny, passed out.
Mhm.
I don't know if he got like slammed in the face.
He probably just got hit.
I don't know if he like hyperventilated and like passed out. But the whole crowd just passes this tiny little white boy all the way
over
across to security, and he was like he was gone.
Which I think brings to a good point. Crowd killing is not okay.
We do not condone that.
Moshing is fun. Go nuts. But don't crowd kill.
Well, and I don't know. I think there was this rise in there was this trend of like going into a mosh pit intentionally to hurt people, and like that takes the fun out of it. Same
with the rise of what you were talking about with black metal, right? With that, just like how hard can we be, right? How extreme can we be? Can we, let's wear weighted gloves, and bring a knife to the mosh pit? Like, why, right? Not necessary at all. This is not what I signed up for.
Disembowelment is not necessary for a mosh pit.
No, the occasional black eye just because things get a little bit crazy. Sure, I understand.
Or like even I would even go as far as like a broken cheekbone.
Yeah, for sure. Makes sense.
Reasonable in a mosh pit, but like.
But people should stay conscious.
People should stay conscious.
They should keep their liver.
People should be able to like walk out of the mosh pit.
Absolutely.
On their own.
But yeah, this is why metalcore was great and is definitely metal and not just hardcore.
Yeah. But we digress.
But on that note, the reason we were there was because it was a Christian concert, right? And this was that huge scene and that huge transition where Christiancore really started to build up, right? And you had the bands like I said, like As I Lay Dying, right? Under Oath, right?
Yes.
And you had asked earlier if anything in that like metalcore scene had ever gotten big, and like I don't think that anything metalcore wise will ever be on like Ryan Seacrest's top 40, right? It's just too heavy, and he'd never put it there. Yeah. But if you look at like the billboards, it's just pure sales, right? Yeah. Under Oath's Define the Great Line hit number 2 on the Billboard Top 200.
I did not know.
Almost every single one of As I Lay Dying's has hit like at least top 20. Yeah. So, I mean, it's huge. It's a absolutely huge scene.
I'm eating my words now.
You are. I am bringing facts.
You were right, and I was less right.
Wow. And it's recorded, too. Yes, I got this. August Burns Red has a new album dropping. I wrote those notes before the album dropped.
And it has since droppeth.
It has definitely dropped. It's a good album, too. But no, so going back to that, right? I'm gonna move a whole lot of stuff around just because, just like my arrows, I talked about the wrong stuff at the wrong time.
Oh, yeah. You're funny.
No, but so the sound of it, right? The biggest thing that they brought was the breakdowns, right? And then we went off into that tangent about mosh pits and the glorious fun that those are. But going back to what they brought musically, right? Because of the breakdowns, I feel like anything with core in its name, right? That is metal in nature. I don't know. I just love like that's
why. This is my thing. Because like I said, I have always interchanged genre titles. Why is hardcore not considered metal?
Because it's not metal.
But I don't understand. Like what?
It has a little bit of a different sound to it. It does. But
maybe my brain is just too simple because some of it I'm just like, when you have really distorted guitars, when you have really fast drums, when you have beats that blow your face off.
No, that's the difference. So the punk scene is a lot less distorted. The punk scene is a little bit more of a rock and roll, but it's not rock and roll.
Okay.
It's very like anti rock and roll.
Right?
Okay. Basically, if you could be anti something, then you're on the punk side of things.
Okay.
But that's also what metal is, right?
Where is hardcore in all of this then?
Punk is hardcore.
So
that's like, the punk hardcore scene is
okay.
So hardcore is the difference between like pop punk, like FM Static, right?
Yeah.
Or who else? Who's a mainstream band that's pop punk? Let's look that up really quick.
Okay.
Oh, so like, Blink 182 would be more pop punk, right?
Okay, all right.
whereas the hardcore scene would have more screaming in it. More
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Weird. Okay. This is when, like, okay, at the
But
beginning of this episode, we talked about how it's all gray lines, gray,
It
blurry
is.
lines of an amoeba.
But if you get it wrong,
Then
then you'll
people are
get
really mad.
crucified. So
But it doesn't make sense because, like, all of these genres truly touch each other
they do.
in some way, shape, or form. And
Yep.
so for people to get so upset when you use the
Crazy.
wrong word to define their really specific subgenre of something,
Yeah.
like, I digress. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. No, definitely. But that was the other thing with so yeah, they brought down or they brought in the use of the breakdown, right? But also they brought in a little bit more of, I'd say, a balance to the dirty vocals, right? I think that's where you really found the differences between the lower growls and the high pitched screams, and then using those in between. And that for me, I feel is like the perfect trifecta, right? If a band has very clear low vocals mixed with, you know, a nice crisp scream, and then melodic vocals as well to go over it, and not just like boy band vocals, but like just really clean singing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll play that all day long for any occasion. That's just sort of my thought.
Like, personal preference, do you prefer like a higher pitched screeching scream, or do you prefer a lower pitched growl?
I think they're both necessary.
Yeah.
If a band only has one, I tend to not listen to them very much.
Yeah, I like clean vocals, deep growls.
You don't.
Layered on top
You
of
don't
each
like
other.
the shrill screams at all.
I don't like the shrill screams.
Yeah.
I do like this much, and then after
Yeah.
that much, that's good for me.
See, I think the perfect band for me would be a base of the deep growls, right? And then I don't know, there's like 150 different types of way to scream, but a base of that, and then sort of backup vocals be a scream, and then the chorus have a melody.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's a really it's a really good song structure.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, basically anything that's on that hardcore side of the metal genres is a stuff that I would listen to. If there was a blackened Post Malone theater core, I'd probably listen to it.
Fucking Post Malone.
But I mean, it would probably sound great. So
yeah. I like that you made yourself laugh so hard with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Be here all week. 4 days.
At least until May 4th.
May the 4th be. That's exciting, huh? Also, Cinco de Mayo is the day after quarantine's supposed to stop. And it's a Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday.
And Coronas. It's a perfect trifecta. Speaking of trifectas.
Trifecta.
Yeah.
Y'all.
So anyways, more about metalcore. If you don't know what my favorite genre is right now, then you will by the end of this.
And it's metalcore. Psych.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
Actually, I talked about most of those things because of the arrows. So
See?
Yeah. So metalcore really started back in the 80s, but then it didn't get its rise in popularity until that mid 2000s era. And that was a lot because of the Christian core scene.
Yeah.
And I think somebody who does a really good breakdown of that would be, who was it? Finn McKenty, right?
Yes.
From the punk rock NBA. He's also from Seattle, so shout outs to local people. But I mean, he's like an absolute dictionary when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Yes.
And
unlike us, he's been in the industry. We're both just consumers.
I just love music.
Music.
Right. So definitely go check that out. Because he talked about it. What killed Christian hardcore, or what killed the Christian core scene.
Spoiler alert, Christians.
Right? Actually, no. And it was a big deal because it was honestly a lot of fake people too.
Yeah.
Right. It was a lot of fake people, a lot of people kind of changing their views on religious stances and all that sort of stuff too. That kind of destroyed it, right?
Yeah.
But there was a point in time where it was almost every single new hardcore or Christian or I guess every single metalcore band that came out and started to get big was considered, or at least called themselves, a Christian band,
or assumed to be a Christian band, until they said
I mean,
otherwise.
you could basically assume that they were, right?
Yeah.
But then you had a whole lot of stuff happen, right? Like there was a huge fall off,
Yeah.
because I feel like there was a lot of people who just thought that it was sort of a fake and just for show. And so I think that's what's kind of killed the hardcore scene a little bit.
Well, and Finn McKenty talks about that like holier than thou mentality that started to rise. So like you had bands like As I Lay Dying, you had bands like Demon Hunter, who are still performing, who are still incredible bands. But they ended up, I feel, kind of falling by the wayside because these other Christian metal bands came to the forefront. They had a very overly religious tone to them, and it was a very like, we are better than you underlying tone to all of their music.
And then you had stuff like Tim, the lead singer from As I Lay Dying, right? He pulled a whole Joe Exotic and tried to get his wife killed.
Yeah.
And
then you have that, we won't get into a big thing, but you have that argument of how can you be Christian and do these things?
There was a big
the hypocrisy.
Big backlash on that from the hypocrisy, and good on that, because call it out when you see it, right?
Yeah. We'll have a whole episode.
Oh, probably
dedicated to As I Lay Dying, because I feel like it's safe to say As I Lay Dying is in both of our like top 3.
Yeah.
Top 5.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least top 5.
Yeah,
for sure. They kind of hit the trifecta for me. So, also in other news, August Burns Red has a new album coming out.
You already talked about that.
I know. Stoked for it. It's a good album. No,
you keep flipping. He keeps flipping his page, but the next page is blank.
Well, I've kind of talked about all the metalcore that I want to talk about right now.
Okay.
So do you want to outro us?
Sure. I do have like a final closing thought.
Oh, for sure.
No, I think more than anything, like this episode in particular, but like doing the research, we did our research separately, and then came to each other and we're talking about like all the stuff we learned. And for me, it just boils down to the importance of acknowledging like none of these genres would exist without each other.
Yeah.
And without musical history.
They all influenced each other.
They have all slowly evolved from each other. And American metal, especially, it evolved from blues music.
Yeah.
Which evolved from jazz, which exists solely because of the slaves that brought music from Africa
whole slave trade,
over the ocean into the States, where they were then enslaved. And so like, yes, you can like your really specific type of music. You can like that just one certain sound, but you absolutely have to acknowledge that
it all has the same roots.
That it all comes from the same place. You don't have to like everything. I don't like everything.
Right.
But you have to have respect for where the music has come from, and all of these weird genres, all of these subgenres that some people don't consider metal and some people don't consider one thing or another. Like I said, it's just an amoeba. Yeah. And it all conglomerate.
It all intertwines.
It all touches each other in one way or another. And it has all grown from the same root.
And everybody can all agree that Nickelback is terrible. Find somebody who likes metal that doesn't agree.
Oh, I like the clarification of find somebody who likes metal. Because I was going to be like, I know people who like Nickelback.
Right.
My final thought was kind of piggybacking on the like, is it hardcore enough? Is it metal enough? Right. And there's this theory that Mozart wrote his final requiem on his deathbed. He was so ill, I believe from syphilis. He was so ill he couldn't even like hold a pen.
Wow.
And he orated it to like his sworn enemy. Like, so yeah, your metal is heavy, your drums are heavy, your guitar is distorted, but like,
right.
How metal are you?
That's pretty metal.
Your metal exists because of syphilis.
Right.
You heard it here first.
Yes. I dig it.
Yeah. So that is our episode about metal genres. Again, we know we didn't talk about all of them. We know we didn't talk about all the bands. And I know we didn't go into super specific detail, but there's so much information
There's so
out there.
much. And you can't, once again, I think like what we talked about in episode 1, right? We want to create something that everybody can listen to and kind of pick something from. But it's not something that's created to please everybody either, right? I'm not going to talk about your favorite band probably. That's just...
And it's not personal.
It's not personal, but there's just so many good musicians out there. There's so many good artists out there. There's so much to talk about. At the same time, though, I would love to hear recommendations of stuff that you feel like we should focus in on.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back through some of these genres or other genres as well and just maybe do one whole episode,
Yeah.
One whole hour-long episode.
Psychedelic black metal.
All right, let's go for it. Travel through Colorado and get our free mushrooms.
Yeah.
Or
Legal mushrooms.
legal mushrooms.
You still have to pay
And
for
then
them.
keep going. No, but I think that's I think that's sort of us going forward with this. And
yeah, that is episode 2. Cut and paste or whatever they say.